Welcome to our podcast. This is Friends on Fire.
I'm Mike. I'm a lifelong devotee of financial independence. I even wrote a book about it.
And I'm Maggie, a newer convert, but just as passionate, especially on the intersection of minimalism and financial independence.
We're one and the same.
We are two like-minded friends who believe that talking about money with your friends and family opens the door to financial well-being.
The Friends on Fire podcast is about dispelling myths, building financial acumen, and sharing your financial independence journey with the people you care about.
This is Friends on Fire.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Maggie.
What's going on?
I am loving this series about your retirement.
I thought you were about to say you're loving my new formal intro of what's going on. But okay.
No, actually, now that you bring it up, I'd prefer that we do something a little less...
Less what? You can't even come up with the word for it. It's so awesome. Less awesomeness. Okay, I'll try to come up with less awesomeness. It's going to be hard for me to tone it down, but I'll try.
Okay.
I agree. I am also loving this series, and I get so many comments from other people. I'm going to go out on a limb and say other people are also loving this series. And on that note, we have a small, teeny tiny favor to ask people. If you are enjoying this show, we would really appreciate it if you would pause the show. Not yet. Wait for a minute, then pause it. And then find this podcast in the Apple Podcast app, which is the main place you can actually leave a rating and review, and leave us a rating and a written review. The written reviews really help. It really helps other people find our podcast. It helps the algorithm that Apple and many of the other podcast apps use. And it just helps to support the work we're doing to get more people to talk about and improve their finances. So I know it takes a little bit of time and effort. It just takes like a couple minutes. And for those of you who have the time to give, we would really appreciate you leaving us a written review.
And if anybody could see Maggie's face right now, it's like borderline puppy dog face. Like she really wants this. This is important.
I do. Yeah. It really is important to me. I can't even, we'll get into the feelings of why, but it is important to us. And thank you in advance.
All right, Maggie. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about your bucket list plans for retirement.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I have deliberately not read the show notes on this because I want to be surprised.
Did you want to be surprised? Well, I'm glad you hadn't read the show notes, because if you had read it this morning, what I finished it about 30 seconds ago, or if you had read some of the drafts where I had been trying to organize my various plans and ideas into categories, you would have seen some pretty crazy stuff, and I'll get into why later. But yeah, I'm really excited. You know, as we were talking about just enjoying this series, the most common question I get when I tell people that I'm retiring, do you know what it is, Mike?
Other than medical insurance?
Well, no, medical insurance is the most common one, which was my point. So that's like the number one question that I get from people is, what are you doing for medical insurance? What's it going to cost? All of that, which we covered on last week's episode. So hopefully that was helpful for people and remove some of the fear and concern from that element of early retirement also. But the second most common question I get is some version of, what are you going to do with all that time? And will you get bored? Different lenses and angles on that same point.
You know, it's funny because people also ask me that about you. They're like, what is she going to do with all of her time? And
like, you know the answer and manage the.
Well, I think I could probably make a pretty good list of all the stuff that you want to do because you told me about it. But even though I know a lot of these things, whenever people ask me that, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, right. I think it is funny that I will say people who know me really well don't ask that question, because they know that I will get into something, and I have never been bored in my entire life. I often actually, like, one of my kids, the oldest one, frequently uses the term bored and like doesn't know what to do with her time, and just, has all these feelings of not knowing what to do and what she wants to spend time on. And I just can't relate. I literally have so many things. I've always been like this. There's so many ideas and things I want to do. I cannot even fathom being bored. And I have not been bored perhaps in 41 years, but definitely in like the last 25 years, I cannot think of a moment when I was bored. And so I will not get bored.
On that note, though, getting bored, I think, is actually kind of a nice exercise because it creates some white space in your mind for you to come up with new ideas that you otherwise wouldn't have had the capacity to think about.
That is a great point. And maybe, sometimes I like to define words. Like I was just Googling what bored actually means.
Well, while you're Googling that, one of the things that is a frequent theme when reading kind of memoirs or self-help books written by people who are very effective or successful is that they always build in time without activities and without stimuli, because kind of like meditation, it allows you to make connections in your brain that you otherwise didn't have. Yes, I'm a big proponent of being bored. I like to always have some time where I'm not doing anything.
I agree, but the one thing I will say is let me just read the definition of bored. Okay. Because I think, then again, that's why I say I've never been bored. Mm-hmm. I agree with you on I need to relax more, and you'll hear my first category of things I want to spend time on is all around this, because I totally agree. One of my problems now is my mind never rests, right? But the definition of being bored is feeling weary because one is unoccupied or lacks interest in one's current activity. So I don't want to be bored per se. I want to relax more. I want to have a slower and simpler life, which we'll get into. And that's why, to me, I'm not looking for boredom per se. I am looking for relaxation and space and white space, like you said, Mike. But anyways, we don't need to keep debating the word bored.
Yeah, I didn't mean to completely derail your episode here. Excuse me. Please continue.
People use that word a lot. Aren't you going to get bored? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So no, I'm not going to get bored, to answer that question. And we'll get into what I'm going to do. And in my true nature, I've categorized what I'm going to do. But before we get into that, I want to introduce this term bucket list, because it's the term I'm using to organize the different things I want to do in early retirement. And to be clear, early retirement basically means the rest of my life, right? And so this isn't a time period. It's for the next chapter of my life. I'm working off a bucket list of sorts. And you know the term bucket list, or what do you think of when you hear the term bucket list, Mike?
From that movie with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, where they want to all these activities they want to do before they kick the bucket, right?
Yeah. And I think I forgot about that movie. And in that movie, though, they knew one of them was found out they were dying, right?
I think they were both dying. They were both in the hospital when they met.
Got it. Okay. I need to go back and rewatch that movie. It's been a while. But you're right. I think there often are these assumptions that when someone uses the term bucket list, they've either had some crazy, I've only got, a year to live moment. And then all of a sudden they're trying to pursue a bucket list. Or they think of bucket list items as these crazy big time, adventurous goals that you want to get to someday, right? I used to say, I want to go spend a month in Australia, and that's something on my bucket list. And so I think the idea of a bucket list, different people think of different things when they hear that term. But I heard a slight kind of redefinition of the term bucket list that I really liked from Chris and Deb, who we had on episode 131. And it was called An Unconventional and Extraordinary Life with Chris and Deb. And they have their whole kind of platform they named Go Bucket Yourself. And they use the term bucket list, and they use it more around not in this, end of life moment where you all of a sudden feel like you have to do all these things you never did, but in the sense of just the simplification of having a bucket list in your day-to-day life. And I love that term. Again, it was taking a term we all are familiar with and know, but kind of using it a little bit differently. So when I met them at FinCon and we started talking about bucket lists, I immediately started naming one of my many, many to-do lists categories, my early retirement bucket list. And I started listing every time I had a thought about something where I'm I want to do this, but I don't have time now. I started putting it on my early retirement bucket list. And that was about a year ago. And I have this crazy list. I say crazy, it's long, of all these things.
Shocker.
But I recently, and I'm a list person, by the way. Even when I just did something and it wasn't on my to-do list, I like to write it on my to-do list so I can check it off. That's how my mind works. That makes me happy. So I came up, I've got this kind of bucket list and all these things I want to do. But when I really started looking at them more recently, in preparation for like all these people, myself, but all these people asking me like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm going to do all sorts of things. I don't even know where to begin. And I would just rattle off random things to people when they would ask that.
And then were they like, oh, I'm sorry I asked. I don't have time for a 30-minute conversation.
And in my true fashion, it was just, I just started rambling on different, I want to take Aikido lessons. And I want to do blah, blah.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's not what,
deep dive on Aikido.
Yeah. They're just like that. I could see their eyes and mine glazing over. So I started going through my list and I was like, look, there's some pretty like common themes in these things. And so I bucketed them. And what I was laughing about earlier, I can't remember what we were saying earlier that made me think of this, but I came up with 5 categories of things of how I'm going to spend my time and what my kind of intentions are during, I say early retirement, but again, just my life, the rest of my life, or at least the next chapter of my life. And I'm calling it the Freedom 5, Mike.
Okay.
Because it's 5 things, and this is all about freedom. I can do whatever I want, right? I'm not doing it on someone else's, timeline or schedule. And I'm calling it the Freedom 5 for simplification, but just for a little peek inside my world and how my brain works. I spent an amount of time that I should not admit trying to come up with like a fun acronym of each of the, I wanted each word I wanted it to like spell something fun, like free with an extra E or something.
Yeah.
And I spent way too much time trying to change the words of what I actually wanted to say into like a word that started with E so that it could like make a fun acronym.
Okay. I
had some acronyms that were like beehive. And then I had a whole metaphor about beehives. And then I had like free. I just had all these acronyms. I'm trying to find my list of them now. You can hear real life paper shuffling in the background. I'll tell you, after a while, here it is. I had free. I had fired, FIRED. I couldn't, I was like struggling on words that started with E on a lot of these. I had a number of potential acronyms. They were not working out. I finally scrapped that and was like, these are not going to start with certain letters.
Oh, wait. So all of this background was to tell me you did not come up with an acronym.
All of it was to tell you that I failed at that mission. So this spells nothing, and it's just the Freedom 5. That was the best I could come up with, was the Freedom 5. I like the alliteration of Freedom 5 was fun for you. So this is Maggie's Freedom 5.
All right.
And I'm Maggie, so I'm going to quit talking about myself in third person. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
I don't get like a drum roll?
Oh, perfect. All right.
Number 1 is what we were just talking about boredom. It is to slow down and be present. And there are a lot of things within this one. Like, I want to meditate daily, which is already my goal now. I'm just not consistently good at it. I'm inconsistently good at it today. I want to do more single tasking. I'm constantly multitasking. Everybody is. I'm constantly distracted, losing my focus. I want to finish more things that I start. Mm-hmm. Today, I start a lot of things. I never have time to finish them. I got a lot of ideas, but I don't always get a chance to follow through and finish. I want to just be more present when I am doing things, which are aligned with the single tasking and finishing things. I just want to slow down. Like, I'm doing too many things too fast. And so back to like that conversation we were having about boredom, on like, I totally agree with you. Like, I want more white space in my life. I want more margin. I want to spend more quality times with my kids, with my mom, with my husband. And I just want to slow down and be more present. And that is like one of my number 1 goals and intentions. And that may not sound like a bucket list item per se, but it is, right? I think about how I live my life today and what I envision it being and what I want to shift into. And that is like the number 1 category for me.
That's great. I think everybody can relate to that and appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'll eke in like one other thing into that category that was maybe going to have its own category, but I fit it in here, is another big thing I plan on spending a lot of time on. And I'm super excited about this. It's like because it's one of the first things I'm going to do when I stop working.
All right.
Is I'm going to, you see how excited my face is right now, Mike?
Yeah.
This will not excite everyone. I'm going to organize and minimize my life more. I know that doesn't sound I can see the look on your face.
I was really expecting a little bit more.
I know you were expecting something else. By the way, I appreciate that you're really not looking at the show notes. You're being surprised by all of this. So it makes me really happy to have less stuff and have like, I hate when I open a cabinet in my bathroom and it's just like somehow crap's gotten shoved in there and I can't find the 3 things I need. And I want to pare things down. I've done a lot of this over the years, but I just never have time to finish. I've got piles of like kids stuff that I need to donate, sell some of. I just want to pare things down. I want to make my home more enjoyable and peaceful to be in day to day. And I want to do some like even heavier minimizing than I've had the energy to do in the past, decade since I've been on this minimalism journey.
That sounds great. And I think a benefit to me from this is that my kids will get some great hand-me-downs from this process.
You'll get more hand-me-downs, yes.
Good. I am supportive of this plan, Maggie.
I like it. And then, I think the last thing in here was just the like what I was saying about learn to relax. I know I'm not good at relaxing. I'm not good at just like sitting. I'm good at like, when I have time, like sitting down and reading a book, I consider that relaxing. But just going for a walk and not listening to something, not listening to a podcast or a book. I always feel like I'm doing too many things at once. I just want to slow down. I want to be more present. I want to be more engaged in whatever it is that I'm doing in the moment. So that's number 1. Maybe that'll parlay into how I am on the podcast too. That'll be an interesting transition to watch.
It's going to be an adjustment period for me to have a different type of co-host on this show.
Yeah.
Does this mean that like you're
less context?
Well, the context is okay. I was thinking more of just about like when you will sign on to do our shows. Like when we have an interview and it starts like 7:00 at night, you were on at 6:59 and 58 seconds opening up that bridge.
I am. I will be on 5 minutes early. I mean, I'm serious. I will. There's a lot of things like that where I'm just constantly running from one thing to the other. And yeah, I'm going to be early for your podcast. Back to what you care about. I'll be on time to podcast and you'll get more hand-me-downs.
All right, great.
Okay, next category is health and fitness, which by the way, when I was working on my like freeze, where I was trying to have like an acronym.
This we're back to the acronym?
We're not. I'm just saying this was going to maybe become exercise, but it's not just about exercise, which is where I was like, the acronym was changing the categories. And I was like, no. So we're back to the Freedom 5. So number 2 in the Freedom 5 is my health and fitness category. So I'm already pretty healthy, I think, but I want to take it up a notch, right? Like I want to take my vitamins every day, which is a small problem I'm not good at. I'm going to, go on daily walks, which I almost do now, but more of them. I'm going to work out a little bit more. I'm going to focus more thoughtfully on like strengthening my core because I know that prevents a lot of back issues and other injuries that I've had. I want to like build my strength. So I've always like been pretty fit and worked out regularly, but I've never been very strong. And so I want to be able to do like push-ups and pull-ups. And I know I can if I put more time and energy, into building that strength and those muscles.
I am seeing now a great social media post series of like your first attempt to do a pull-up and then like a week later and a month later. This is going to be great.
Yeah, and we have a pull-up bar in our house, so well, that'll be like some fun. Follow me along on social media. And then the other thing is, I eat fairly well, right? Greg and I are both vegan, but I still eat a lot of like processed foods. I want to focus on like more natural home cooked food and like less processed food, and just eating like more fruits and vegetables and more thoughtfully and being able, like having the time to go to a local farmer's market and get more locally sourced food and things like that.
Yeah. On that note, not to take us too far off track, but I am constantly discouraged with my own kind of tendencies to go towards processed foods. Even when I'm like looking at it, I'm like, I know this is not the best, but I don't have the energy to do anything different. And I know that it is not real food. It is a food-like product. They are what Mark Bittman, the author of a great book I'm now drawing a blank on, Animal Vegetable Junk, would describe as a food-like product. It is so highly processed that there is nothing natural about it. The way your body digests it is not natural. And so the lack of time forces us into these eating habits where we're not really eating food, and it's like really discouraging to me. And so I totally relate to that. And I look forward to hearing about this journey for you. Maybe I can glean some good advice from it.
Yeah, I'm what you just said in that example, and I've heard of Mark Bittman's book before. I've heard of Animal Vegetable Junk, and he's written a couple other books too. I just Googled him. I'm aware of this, right? And like you said, it's just a time thing of like, it's a convenience. And so I'm really excited to dig more into this piece in particular, because again, I'm pretty healthy in all the other categories, but there's just, I think there's a lot I can do better with food. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited for that. And again, it takes time. And sadly, it's something that, the average person doesn't have enough time to lean into. So. Okay. And kind of related to your Mark Bittman point, my third category in the Freedom 5 is learning things. So I want to spend more time exploring different ideas and curiosities that I have. And so an example would be like, I remember hearing about Mark Bittman. I wouldn't have known his name, but I've heard about the book you mentioned, Animal Vegetable Junk. And I've read a lot about just the food industry and other things. And there's great books and documentaries. And that's one example, but I want to lean into like learning things where like I'll see something in an article really briefly, but not really have time to like learn more about it and kind of go down that path. And so I want to learn a lot of new skills and take in new knowledge to be able to do new things. And so some examples are, I've talked before, Mike, about like, I want to build furniture. I took a lot of like woodworking classes in high school and used to build some smaller stuff there. My dad was super handy and I did a lot of stuff with him. I've got all his old tools. And I just like, I like building things. I built our custom mailbox recently,
which was great looking.
Yeah. But I want to rebuild our deck. Right. There's things I know I roughly have the skill to do, and I'll just need to like hone my skills on. And there's a lot more I could learn, but I want to take on a lot of like DIY projects. I want to build a custom bed. I want to rebuild our deck. I want to, I just want to build some stuff. I'm excited about it.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. I'm hoping the cost of wood will go down also. And just like DIY stuff, like things where it's like you fix some, leaky faucet pipe thing on the outside of your house. And I want to learn more so that I can call it something other than a leaky faucet pipe thing. Mm-hmm. Right. I want to learn like what you actually call that spigot. Right. But I want to like lean into some more DIY stuff. I've always enjoyed it. It's always been something I've loved, but just haven't had a lot of time for certainly over the past 10 years. Also, another category in the learning things is like, I want to make things myself versus buying them. So like, I've always been kind of granola-y and like wanted to be more zero waste, but I'm not. And I love the idea of like making my own soap, which you know how to do, Mike. Mm-hmm. How hard could it be? You make soap.
It's not hard.
Yeah. So like, I'm excited. I want to like make my own soap, and I want to like make it for friends and make some Friends on Fire stamp soap. That will be so much fun.
Yeah.
I want to I always thought it'd be cool to make candles. I never got on the COVID bread making bandwagon, but I was like, I'm going to get on that soon. I want to learn how to make my own bread. And all this stuff, I might say, you know what? I'm just going to buy candles from now on. Like making candles is a beast. I never want to do this again. But there's all these things, again, they're curiosities. I want to try them and decide if it's something I want to keep doing or not.
Yeah.
I may make bread and say, I'll never make bread again. I'm going to buy it from my local farmer's market. I want to learn how to quilt from my mom. My mom is an amazing quilter. And that's one of those skill sets that like, someday when she passes, it will not have been passed on to anyone. Right. And I want to know, like, I want to learn how to sew and learn how to quilt. And I think that it's not like a massive interest of mine, but she's got such an amazing skill set in that area that like, I would like it to be passed down to myself and my kids. I know I've mentioned I want to take Aikido lessons. So I just, again, all these curiosities. I want to have more time to read more books, listen to more podcasts. There's so many amazing like YouTube videos and channels out there. And I love learning things. And so this is a big thing that I want to spend more time being able to like learn new skills and explore my curiosities.
Another great category, Maggie.
Yeah.
All right. What's up next?
So the fourth category in the Freedom 5, if you're tracking our counts here, Mike, is I want to help people and causes that I care about. So this is a mix of volunteering. So from, things at my kids' school to, volunteering with organizations and causes that I care about, to doing more things to helping people halfway around the world that I may not even know. I just want to do more to help people. And again, some of those people are, close by in my inner circle, and some of those people are further away. And some of these things are like little things. Like, I want to be able to, my one of my kids is doing a running group right now, like a running after school activity. And, I know a lot of the parents are working parents, and it's a tough time to get their kids. And it's like, we all live in the same neighborhood. Like, I want to be that person who's extra helpful and is like, I'll take the kids. I got the time. I got the ability. Like, don't you stress about how you're going to get your kid over to running at 3:00 in the afternoon, which is difficult for a working parent. I will do it, and I'm happy to do it. And you don't even need to repay the favor. You always feel like you got to like take turns and so I just use that as an example of like, I want to help people around me and in my community and my friends and make their lives easier where I can.
It's admirable. And
then to bring it back to this podcast, because I've also gotten a lot of questions from people around, are we going to continue the podcast? And I'm like, of course. This is what I have more time to do now. But to me, this podcast fits right in this category of helping people and things that I care about. Like, I want to help more people with on their finance journey and to, be able to make positive improvements in their lives. And I think this podcast does that. And so I plan on spending more time on the podcast than I even am able to do today, and showing up on time to our recordings.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm also surprised why people think that the podcast is ending. I was giving a presentation yesterday to a group of about 100 people about company earnings. And when I opened it up for questions, the first question I got was, now that Maggie's retiring, what are you going to do with the podcast? And I'm like, same thing.
Can we go back to the fact that you're giving a presentation about company earnings?
And that
the first question you get is, what's happening to the podcast because I'm retired? Has nothing to do with company earnings.
Nothing at all.
I love it. It's one of many things I am going to miss about work. I really do love our company.
Oh, I thought you were going to say my earnings presentations.
Oh, I mean, look, I'm really going to miss your earnings presentations. I'll have to wait until it all comes out publicly and just, listen to what the market gets to hear about our company's performance. I am sad to miss those, Mike. Okay. Last category in the Freedom 5 is adventure and travel.
Yes.
So I want to be more adventurous and experience driven in large and small ways. So, we're taking this cool trip with our kids this summer to Europe for 6 weeks. That's a big thing. I can't do that, every couple months, or I may run out of money. So I do want to travel the world more with my kids. I want to spend more time finding great travel deals. Like in the past, I've most of my life, I've spent a lot of money on travel because I haven't had the time or the energy or the knowledge, a mix of things to really like be patient and look for deals and focus my travel around where I'm able to get good deals. But I'll have a lot of time for stuff like that, I hope. And so that's one of the things I want to do is just, adjust some of my adventures around good deals and getting the most out of our dollars. But I also want to do like little adventures, right? I want to just plan more fun weekend outings and things after school and other stuff with the kids that really give us these cool experiences. There's always like really neat stuff happening in our city that I don't always get to see because I don't know about it. I'm too busy, various reasons. And I want to go do more stuff that's just adventurous. Again, little adventures and big adventures.
And I think the reason that you and most people, myself included, don't do this very well is just because we are constantly recovering from the other commitments on our time. Like, I mean, after a day of work, I have to sit down and relax for like 2 hours in order just to be prepared to do anything else. I have to recover. And if you're not recovering from something, like absolutely you'll go find these opportunities. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's just a great point, Mike, because even on the weekends, we're recovering on the weekends. There's some weekends where I just want to do absolutely nothing, and my kids have the energy to do stuff. And so, but I don't, and we don't. And so, I think I'll have a lot more energy for this category, and I'm excited. So that's my 5. If I go back through them, it's slow down and be more present, health and fitness, learning new things and exploring my curiosities, helping people and causes I care about, and adventures and being more experience driven in travel.
Awesome.
Yeah. So let's wrap up with a little side topic of me asking Greg what was on his bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
I was maybe going to have him join this episode. I don't remember why I decided not to. I think it was just because sometimes our scheduling's like last minute and I just didn't. But I did like a week or two ago, I was like, well, what's on your bucket list? Like, do you want to come on this episode and we can kind of talk about it? Oh, this might be why I finally didn't even have him come on, because he was like, I don't subscribe to conventions like bucket list and things. And I was like, Greg, there's nothing conventional about what we're doing here. What do you mean conventions? And we got into a funny little like just back and forth about it, where he's like, I don't subscribe to, things like this. And I was like, but there's nothing. Anyway, it was just kind of a funny discussion. But he did tell me a bit about, like, he's got some very thoughtful intentions that he's put out. And I'm not going to go even get into them in detail, but I just thought it was kind of interesting to think about our different approaches. Cause I'm like a list person, right? Like I have a rough plan of how I'm going to spend my time, which I actually think is kind of important going into this very like open and expansive time in my life that could turn into anything, like I want to be thoughtful and intentional about how I spend that time. And Greg's being very thoughtful and intentional too. He doesn't want to like kind of overcommit himself as much as I already have with my massive list, but he's very focused on certain habits like meditating and breathing exercises, his physical fitness, listening to like inspiring and thought-provoking podcasts and reading more nonfiction books. He reads and he listens to like a good bit of fiction books, but he doesn't really have the like energy to listen to a lot of nonfiction books. He always like wants to, but doesn't. And so those are some of the like habits he wants to build in. And then he's got some kind of high level intentions, which are just to be more present for himself and with his family and kids. And, his biggest thing is to try not to like, quote, figure it all out in the first 6 months, which I really like.
Yeah. And
I need to get on this too. Because there's nothing like to figure out for me in a way. And I say that because it's like, I was about to say I've figured it out, but I know I haven't. I just mean I've figured out the next chapter, and I'm not trying to be overly prescriptive about what it looks like, other than my Freedom 5, right? Those are some kind of intentions, but it's not like that prescriptive.
Other than the Freedom 5 and the sub Freedom 50 bullet points, you don't want to be too prescriptive.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to be too prescriptive, but I'm going in with a very open mind of things are going to evolve and pivot and shift. And I'm okay with that. And I know that, right? So I have a view of what it's going to look like. And I might get into it and start to realize like, wow, I need more structure to my days, or I need, like I'm getting really lazy, or, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't know what it's going to look like. And so I kind of like Greg's comment on like not trying to kind of figure it all out in the first 6 months and just taking it easy. And yeah, we were talking last night actually, and he was like, he's just thinking of it as a sabbatical in the beginning of not even knowing exactly where he wants his time to go. I have way more like, the podcast and just some like me getting so excited about like minimizing and organizing the house. Like he's like, you Mike, that's not exciting to him. He'll help me, but it's not exciting to him. So I have way more kind of crazy ideas of like, wanting to build a bed and all these like things than he has on his list, which I think is why he A, doesn't have a list, and B, is saying he's not trying to like figure it all out in the first, 6 months of being retired. He's just going to enjoy his life. And he thinks a lot of things will come to him. And I think he's right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. That was a fantastic list. I'm very excited for you, Maggie.
Thanks. I'm excited.
So you love talking about your feelings. I am now eager to hear how you are feeling.
Yeah. So I will say it is about 30 working business days that I have left to work. And to be clear, I don't work on Thursdays. I work 4 days a week, and I've got like a week of spring break and some other things mixed in. And so the other day when I counted, I'm a little under 30 right now, probably. So it's less than 30 days. And by the time this airs, it'll probably be closer to like 25
days. Who's counting?
Too much, but who's counting? Anyways, the point is, it is like a small number of days left. I'm feeling, first off, I'm appreciating the response from everyone. Like I've gotten such amazing comments and support. And so just a huge thank you to everyone who is being, very positive and encouraging on this journey and very happy for myself and Greg. And also you, Mike, because you get a lot of people that are like, express their happiness for me through you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And then ask you like what I'm going to do and stuff. And so, it's great to see that. And it's great to, as it gets closer and closer and, has become public and more real, it's great to see that response from people. So thank you. But I will say on the flip side, I'm like oddly stressed lately. And I've been trying to figure out why, because you would think that this is like a time of, I don't know, like winding down, but I'm winding down a 15-year career with the same company with many of the same. I mean, there's a lot of new people, but there's a lot of people who in that mix I have worked with for, 10, 15 years and have known for a really long time. And I think, one other, like, are you surprised to hear that I'm stressed first off?
Well, no, it sounds like you've been beating yourself up over this acronym for the past week.
I'm not stressed about the acronym, but I mean, I was the other night when I was working on it. But no, it's so like, I've been trying to figure out why I'm stressed. And I think it's because this is a huge change. And I'm trying to be like kind to myself. This is a massive change. There's a lot of fear associated with it, which I've talked about before. But also like logistically, I'm restarting a massive amount of things in my life. So I was even like comparing it to like getting married or something like, or divorced perhaps is a better comparison. Because like I'm having to get a new phone for the first time. I've got a new laptop. I've got to get them all set up with everything. And like it's a lot of like work and energy. I'm like having to find new doctors. I'm having to like think about a lot of my financial accounts that will transition as a result of leaving a company and how I have to deal with that. Like it's a lot of logistics, which take up time. I'm going through like decades worth of files to organize them and clean them out and stuff. And so it's a lot of logistics, but it's also a lot of like emotions tied to those logistics of like it's a demand on my time, but it's also just emotionally a burden. Burden's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Like it's emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
Because everything is changing and it's a big change coming up.
Yeah, I understand.
And so that's how I'm feeling, just to sum it up. I'm best said is like, I'm oddly stressed for what would seem like I should be in like, a wind down mode. I'm feeling a lot of pressure to get a lot of things done in the next 30 days. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a very exciting review of your plans, Maggie. I am living vicariously through this, and I look forward to seeing how this turns out once you stop working this summer.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get through the next 30 days.
Right.
It's really, it's 30 working days. It's 2 months. And so 2 months. Okay. Should we do some takeaways?
Sure. Let's do it. I will let you do these because it's your list.
Okay. So number 1, just the concept itself of a bucket list is kind of fun. It's like a new take on a to-do list of sorts. And to someone who loves to-do lists, I'm going to put it in the fun category. Number 2, I think there is some value in spending time thinking about how you want to spend your, early retirement, any sort of sabbatical or time off that you want to take. And if you can't think of anything, then you might want to really kind of think hard about what your plans are and what your approach is, because I do think, it's funny comparing kind of how Greg and I are thinking about this. I think there's value in just having a sense of whether it's a long to-do list like me or whether it's just a very, thoughtful and intentional list of kind of habits and intentions. I think there's value in putting some time against that. I'm not doing good at takeaways when I just recap the topics. I see your face.
Yeah.
Number 3, you can have a bucket list without retiring. You don't need to early retire to think of your life as a, bucket list approach, which is what I love that kind of Chris and Deb talk about. And I think are trying to like normalize that word more. Like you can dream big, you can dream small. There could be simple things that can have a really big impact on your day-to-day happiness that you want to focus on. So don't feel like you have to like wait to do some of these things, right?
Yeah, it's great advice.
Okay. I think I think that wraps this bucket list early retirement episode up.
Thanks everybody for listening. If you've been challenged or inspired by what you've heard, please rate and review the show. You can also subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode.
If you have any thoughts or questions, we would love to hear from you. You can always leave us a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370, or you can hit us up on Instagram.
All right. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Bye.